Good morning, everybody. Well, good morning or good evening, I guess it is. I'm not sure if it's morning or if it's evening. I'm going to wait for everybody to sort of start getting online before I get into this. But this is my first live on YouTube, my first live stream on YouTube. I've never done one of these before. So bear with me as I work out all of the bumps and the creases in the road. But yeah, this is my first one. So pretty excited to get into it. It's super important. I'm trying to reconnect. Apparently I'm reconnected now. Like I said, it's the first time I've ever done one of these live streams, so bear with me as I work it out. There seems to be a couple of you on here, so I'm just going to get stuck into it because what's going to happen is I'm going to do this live stream and then I'm going to post it on YouTube later for everybody who couldn't make it for the live stream. My audience is mostly from the United States of America, but there are people from all over the world. So I tend to try to accommodate the largest audience first, and then everybody else, I guess, can watch it later, and hopefully they can. Yeah, there we go. We got Stefan, I think I'm saying it right, from Denmark. We got someone from Europe. So there we go. Maybe I should be catering towards the Europeans, not the Americans, but let's not start that kind of a conversation now. Yeah, as I was saying, it's a super important Q&A for me. And at any point in time, if anybody wants to chime in and ask a question, I'm going to try and get to that. But just to start off, I'm really going to get stuck into the real frequently asked questions about the van and the trip. I find that I spend a lot of my time answering these questions, and we got 2 people from Denmark. How about that? Shout out from Denmark. Don't know if that's ever happened to me before. So as I was saying, there's frequently asked questions. I spend a lot of my time answering them. I did get a couple of responses on Instagram when I shouted out on Instagram that I wanted some questions. So I'm going to try and get to those as well. And then some more specific ones if people watching want to know some more specific details about anything, about the van, the trip, my personal situation currently. We'll get stuck into that. So I'm going to start with the most simple one that I get asked all the time. What's your range? And the complete total range of my van, the solar powered van, is 200 miles or 300 kilometers off of a full charge. Sometimes it's a little less. It depends on the terrain. Obviously, anyone who drives an electric vehicle that's watching right now will understand that it's heavily dependent on the terrain that you're driving over. A good example is when I drove from LA to San Diego. That's like some of the most flat, straight, easy roads to drive on. It's almost like it's slanted constantly down the hill. So you generally see your best range on that kind of a situation. And yeah, I think I got nearly like maybe a little bit over 200 miles. It was like just on 200 miles. 300 kilometers off of the charge up there. But then there's been other situations where I've been in the cold and driving over mountains and stuff like that, and the range has decreased significantly, even down to 120 miles off of my full battery bank. So hopefully that kind of answers the question. Maximum real world mileage would be 200 miles or 300 kilometers. And then other than that, it's dependent on the situation, like any other vehicle. We got Cristina from España. Hola, Cristina, ¿cómo estás? And Bea from Verde por Dentro. She's in Baja California down there. So hola, Bea, bienvenido. I would try to do it in Spanish, but my Spanish isn't up to standard yet. So I know there's a lot of people watching from Latin America, and I hope I'm speaking clearly enough in my Australian accent so that you understand everything that I'm saying. So the next question that I wanted to tackle was, how long does it take to charge? And that's specifically related to solar charging the van. And obviously that is varied as well. In a real world situation, I have charged the van as fast as 2.5 days. So, you set your panels up and you start tracking the sun in the morning. You turn the van, or you flatten the panels by midday, and then you turn the van around and you start tracking the sun going down. And you do that for 2.5 days. Usually by the morning of the third day, just before midday, you can pack everything up and the batteries are full. So that's a best case scenario. And then there's been moments like, for example, when I was up in the Arctic Circle. Well, maybe not the Arctic Circle. I was in northern British Columbia, and that's all on YouTube. We all have all of these videos available to watch. We got stuck, I think is what the episode is called. Basically, we got stuck in the snow, and we sat there for maybe 5 days. We ran out of food. It was me and Keegan. We were traveling together at that point in time. So we're traveling for like we were stuck there for 4 or 5 days. We got hammered by snow. There was snow coming down. Every morning we'd wake up and there was an extra foot of snow out there. So we had to brush the snow off the panels. And it took like 4 or 5 days to get something like, I think it was 100 kilometers. It was maybe 60 miles. It wasn't that far, which was, probably the worst we've ever done as far as solar charging. So hopefully that answers the question too. It's variable. Best case scenario, 2.5 days, and then worst case scenario is, weeks. If there's no sun, you don't really charge. You kind of just have to sit still and stay put. I will say though, during that time when we were up in northern British Columbia, we never went without power. It wasn't like we didn't have power for lights or for cooking. We were still cooking and surviving. It wasn't like we had a limited amount of power. So, it's not as if like you're sitting there and you're like freezing to death because there's no energy for you to survive. You're still surviving. It's still a life support vehicle. It's just the majority of our energy goes towards charging the batteries for driving. So, that hopefully adds some more information to it. The next one is more specifically to how far you can go off of a day of charging. Seeing as though I just said the best case scenario is that it takes 2.5 days to charge the van, people seem to want to know how far you can go off of 1 day of charge, like on average kind of thing. And we got someone from Portugal. We're all over the world today. That's really cool. Hola, Pedro from Portugal. How do you say hello in Portuguese? I should know this. Sorry. Maybe you can answer that for me, Pedro. Hello, Pedro. I'm just going to say it in the language that I know the best. So seeing as though I said 2.5 days of charging, people want to know how far you can go in one day of charge. Oh, there we go. It's hola. I feel so ignorant. Hola. How far you can go in 1 day of charging. And that's a really hard question to answer as well because it's so variable. But on average, I would say we could get anywhere from the maximum I've ever charged in one single day is 80 miles, which is, what's that in kilometers? I think it's like 160 kilometers or something like that. 80, it's about that. No, that doesn't make sense. I don't know. 80 miles is the most I've ever charged in that. I'm sorry about this imperial metric mix-up. I wish it was all in one smooth thing, but the world doesn't like to agree on its measurement system. So 80 miles is the figure that I'm going to give you. That's the most I've ever charged and driven in one single day. And the least, once again, it can be as low as 0. If you don't get any sun, you don't get any sun. So there we go. Thank you, Stefan. It's 80 miles equals 128 kilometers. So that's the maximum I've ever driven from one solid day of charging, which is pretty decent. I'd say the average though would be more around like the 50 mile, 80 kilometer mark. I'd say that'd be kind of like, especially like in this part in the Californias, which is where I am currently. The sun's usually pretty productive all year round, so you can usually get a pretty good amount of energy in the batteries for 1 day of driving. So, but typically we don't do that. That's the thing. We usually stop and charge for the 2.5, 3, 4 days, however long it takes, and then we drive our full mileage to get to our next destination. The only reason why I would charge for a single day and then move again is usually because I don't like the spot that I'm stopping in. So it kind of like works into like that whole that whole lifestyle choice. You know, if you had one of these vans yourself, you might want to drive every day, and you might want to do that pack up, drive at nighttime, set up for the morning sun, and charge all day, and then drive at nighttime. That might be something that you would like to do. But for me, it's more like I like to stop, surf, rock climb, get to know the people, eat the food, all of that sort of stuff. So for me, spending those days hanging out, enjoying editing videos so that I can have content for all you guys to watch, it kind of works with my lifestyle. But yeah, if you wanted to charge and drive whatever mileage you could around, in this particular van, around 50 miles, 80 kilometers on average a day, you could. And that's more enough, I think, for a lot of RVers. A lot of people like to sort of cruise around. They don't like to drive huge distances, like 300 kilometers in a single day. You know, that's kind of like what we end up doing. We end up driving the whole range in a day and a bit, and then setting up for the next couple of days and just enjoying ourselves. That's the way we choose to live our lifestyle. Next question is, how many batteries are in the van? This is a specific answer. This doesn't depend. So it doesn't depend on, hey, T45, I've got to keep looking at these comments. I've got to say hello to, Jonathan Melwish is here, T455, hello everybody. And buenas rutas y buena vida. Saludos de Arizona. Hello, hi, hola, ¿cómo estás? So yeah, as I was saying, batteries. How many batteries are in the van? We have 2 packs of batteries made up of pouch cells. One is lithium iron phosphate, the pouch cells. That's the main drivetrain pack, and that's 80 kilowatt hours. And the second pack, the auxiliary pack, the one we use to charge our solar off of, we charge using our solar panels, is 40 kilowatts, and that's lithium polymer. It's like lithium cobalt, I think, lithium nickel cobalt or something like that. I'm not completely sure of the chemistry, but the ones in the drivetrain pack are sort of decent sized batteries, and the ones that we built, the ones that Brett and Kira at Solar Roller up in Ashland, Oregon built for us, are about this size. They're kind of like a chocolate bar sized battery, like a Hershey's chocolate bar kind of size. Yeah, and that's 40 kilowatt hours. We have 40 kilowatt hours of storage in that battery pack. So all up, we have 120 kilowatt hours of batteries, which is quite decent. It's quite a lot. I think like a really high range Tesla would have 90 kilowatt hours of battery. Obviously, the drag coefficient of a Tesla is much lower and much lighter than this big, huge van that I'm driving. So it's crazy. Hey, Finren and Sterwin, Ukraine. There we go. And Finren, I don't know where Finren's from, but I've got a couple of questions coming through. I'm going to get to your questions in a second. I'm just going to get over these frequently asked questions first before I start getting into the more specific stuff. And then there was a lot of people who sent questions in online. Finren, Scotland. There we go. Another European. So far, we've had only a couple of people from the United States. Well, that's funny. Then the next, I already covered that. What type of batteries? Lithium. They're both lithium based, as the anode and the cathodes are different. But yeah, the chemistry is lithium. 6. This is one that I get asked all the time. It's such a hard question to answer. How long is the trip going to take? Jonathan, there we go. We got someone from Transylvania, Romania. There we go. That's a cool. I've never been there. I would love to go there one day. Yeah, how long is the trip going to take? I mean, it's such a hard question to answer. When I started the trip, I sort of imagined it taking 2 years, sort of meandering around and taking my time. And it's been like 2.5 years so far. But the thing is, I'm really enjoying myself still being out on the road. It's been such a all of these mishaps and things that have happened on the trip, and me taking my time, have been just such a really cool blessing. Actually, just before I got here, I was, I'll let you on a little secret. Last night I had a party. It was my birthday, yesterday? No, on Friday. It was my birthday on Friday. So a couple of the people who I've met here and made friends with through a gathering for me last night up in a local vineyard. And so, yeah, we were having a little bit of a drink, and that's the thing. That's why, like, answering this, how long is this trip going to take, question is really hard, because sometimes I end up meeting cool people from different places, and I get to get into their lifestyles, and I get to experience the way that they see the world and the way that they live their lives. And I think ultimately anyone that travels kind of travels for that reason. I mean, I'm assuming, but majorly, like, that's why I travel. I travel because I like experiencing difference, and I like seeing things from different parts of the world and seeing how things work. And yeah, it's super fun, it's super enjoyable. I really enjoy the people that I meet. And in saying that, I meet really cool people, and then they have really cool things for me to do. And then I end up staying longer than what I want to. You know, there's been so many times where I've been like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 days in this town or in this city, and then I end up spending 2 weeks, just because I really enjoy myself, and I have some really good company with me at that time. So the trip's tending to take a little longer. There's lots of cool stories out there too. I mean, I try to tell as much of the stories of the people that I meet as I can, but it's super hard. It's super hard because there's just so much cool things to show and tell about this trip so far. So we try to pick the best of the best to show everybody. And yeah. So how long is the trip going to take? I meandered around that question. I don't know. Let's say another 2 years. I'm in Mexico at the moment, and obviously I'll get into it later, but that's the next question, actually. I'll get into that in a minute. But basically, yeah, there's things sort of preventing me from moving at the moment. One big thing, obviously, is the global pandemic and the coronavirus. So yeah, we're sort of keeping our eye on that situation before we can get moving again and start crossing borders and all of that sort of stuff. So which brings me to my next question. What's the current plan with the trip, with the rebuild of the van? So as anybody who's sort of been tuning in for a long time, there's more people from Europe than America. Happy 2 days delayed birthday, Joel. Yeah, there is a lot more people. Maybe lunchtime on a Sunday is not really a good time, because it's lunchtime here at the moment. Maybe it's not really a good time to be having a live stream, but who knows? Maybe it is. Our co-follower is telling you to be quiet, Bear. Hopefully in a friendly way. Yeah, current plan with the rebuild. This is a good one. It's a good question to answer. Basically, a lot of people who've been following for a long time would know that obviously the van was in an accident in Catavenia, which is about 300 kilometers, 400 kilometers south of where I currently am. We got caught in a huge windstorm, and I forgot to put a metal pin, which was like the safety feature of the solar array. I forgot to put it in the van, and basically some wind got underneath the solar panels as we were driving, as Keegan was driving down the highway, and then all of a sudden the panels just got torn off of the roof. And I was traveling. Actually, I was co-piloting Bear's green van at the time, so we had to turn around. We were with some other travelers. It was like a convoy of us. It was really fun. We're having a really good time. They caught us, and they told us that a panel had fallen off the roof, and I was like, oh, they were from Quebec in Canada. And I was like, oh, damn it, that's annoying. I'm going to have to solder a panel back in its place. And anyway, we turn around and we get back there, and Keegan's just looking at me like crazy. And then I just see all these panels just scattered all over the road. And it was obviously a very devastating moment for the trip. So that happened in January or February at the start of this year. Then I ended up coming back to the north to Ensenada to see if I could get this van fixed. Or we tried to fix it actually in a town called Vicente Guerrero first. And then the panels caught on fire. And then we realized, okay, this is going to take some time. to sort out. We're going to have to replace all the solar panels. They're not safe and productive enough for us at the moment. So basically, we then shot back up to Ensenada, which is where I've basically stayed since that time. I have sponsors on board who are Galt Energy and SunPower Global, Maxion, and they've kindly supplied me with a brand new set of solar panels. We haven't got them yet, but stay tuned because it's going to be really exciting to show everybody how we do the exchange and all of that sort of stuff. That's coming up soon. I'm going to go and pick up those panels very soon. And then when we get those panels, it's just a matter of configuring a solar array and all of that sort of stuff. So basically, I'll tell you what's happening. I've got the van in a workshop. The workshop's name is ORS Off-Road Racing. And there we go. The accident was on the 31st of January at the start of this year. Yeah, and then obviously, like in all of that, there was a global pandemic too. So everybody kind of knows what happens when a global pandemic hits. We're all in it. We're all in the same boat. Everything slowed down. I had a bunch of people, sponsors and companies that were, very excited to help out and get me back on the road as soon as possible. The global pandemic hit, and obviously they were in no capacity to be able to support the trip at that point in time. So we kind of had to go right back to square one. All of our networks kind of collapsed because of this financial situation that everybody's in. And then, I just slowly had to build my networks up. And that's when I got in contact with Jose from Galt Energy, and we spoke, and he decided that they had the capacity to help. And then SunPower got on board, which is a huge deal. SunPower is major in the solar power industry. So it's really good to have both of those companies' supports through all of this, and finally to be making headway. And I can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. I can see my van with all of its panels on the roof. And anyway, getting what I was talking about, the race shop that I'm in, ORS Racing, is here in Ensenada. They build race cars, which is really cool. But the owner of that company is a cybernetics and robotics engineer. He studied engineering at university, and he's very interested in technology and the advancement of all sorts of things, even just for race cars, for example. We're talking about building an electric race car, which would be pretty cool, just to see what we can do, see if we can push the rails. And it's really cool to have a guy who's in this super gasoline-fueled industry, which is the racing industry, so open and understanding to having a vehicle like mine in his shop, and willing to put his time up to be passionate about rebuilding the solar array as we can. So the plan is to build a solar array, and I've leaked a few little bits and pieces on the internet. So if you want to go check them out, they're on Instagram. Just go to Instagram and type Root Del Sol into the search bar, and you'll find some little details. But basically, we're designing an array that's gonna sort of swing out and slide out, and it's gonna be all automated this time. It's all going to be super structurally solid, and then we're going to cover it in some brand new SunPower solar panels, which is super exciting. And we're hoping to have that van delivered by mid-January. Hopefully, we're hoping we're going to get it done. So we're going to see it's coming to the pointy end of the project. All the base work has been done. All the people who are on board supporting are supporting, and you guys have been absolutely incredible. There's been so much support from you guys. There's been a lot of things that I've been able to push forward with, as far as the rebuilding of this solar array, because I've had your support both financially and online, just outreaching for me and all of that sort of stuff too. So yeah, that's the current plan with the rebuild. So we're going to hopefully get the van out by early to mid-January, and you guys are going to see some exciting stuff. So all within the next couple of months, which is really cool. It's been a long year. 2020 has been a long and difficult year. So they're most of the frequently asked questions. Now I'm going to start getting stuck into a bunch of the Instagram questions, and then let's see, because there's a bunch on here that I might have already talked about. Okay, there's one on here that says, what's the weight of your vehicle? And specifically, what's the weight of the batteries in like a ratio? The vehicle as it is without any modifications to it was 3 tons, which I don't know what it is in pounds, but it's 3 tons. And we added a new set of batteries and all of the solar panels and all of that sort of stuff and all of the interior. And I think it's up to about 6 tons now. So it's a pretty heavy vehicle. And I'd say the majority of all of that weight is all of the battery packs and then obviously the solar panels. The old solar array was about 300 kilograms. I'd say not much more or much less. It's really hard to say because it wasn't very specified. But yeah, that's kind of like the weight of the vehicle. It's a super heavy vehicle. It's not light in any way whatsoever. Hopefully that answers that question. How does it deal with hills and mountains? Can I give an example from the USA? Yes, I definitely can. It deals with the mountains on highways pretty well. If you have speed and momentum, you're going to be able to climb up and down. The torque of the vehicle is able to sort of pull up. It is very limited though. If you get off-road and you sort of go up a decent grade, the vehicle will stop. Actually, the best example for understanding the limits of this vehicle was in San Francisco. I was in San Francisco and I was driving. Obviously, if anybody here has been to San Francisco, yeah, that's right. Thanks, Stefan. You've been doing all the conversions for me. Yeah, 6 tons. Yeah, it's 14,000 pounds. I think that was the figure I had on the top of my head. I think it was 14,000 pounds. That was the last time I Ashland, Oregon, before I left for Alaska. So I probably should put it on the scales again after we finish the rebuild to see what it is. But anyway, back to my example. In San Francisco, we were driving up. I was driving. Keegan was gone. He'd left at that point in time to be somewhere else. So I was by myself and I was driving up. If anyone's been to San Francisco, you know how steep the streets are there. And they kind of like dip so that you get a bit of speed and you can keep going up. And I remember I got to this hill, but there was a stop sign and I had momentum. And if I would have kept, the van probably would have made it over this hill, but we had to stop. There was like a line of cars and I had to stop. And literally I was stuck on this decent grade hill and it was, tar road. It was in a city. The van just didn't have the torque to get up the hill. So we had to sort of do a U-turn and it was quite dangerous and quite frustrating actually. But yeah, I would love to upgrade the van so that I had a little bit more torque to it. And so we're sort of thinking about that if we have time to do that within this rebuild. So yeah, we're talking about all that. Hopefully we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's limited, but it works currently. That's kind of the best answer for that as far as its power going up mountains and all of that sort of stuff. So this is a good question. How much solar is used for driving versus how much you use for your domestic use? And it's really like for domestic use, it's minimal. It's very, very small. I think I use something like a ratio of, I don't know, like it would be maybe 2% of the energy. For example, I use maximum 4 kilowatt hours of energy a day for my personal use to cook and to light and charge batteries, phones, laptops, and all of that sort of stuff. Use about 4 kilowatt hours of energy. We have an on-demand hot water system in the van. I just did a van tour. Last week I released a van tour and you can see all of the details of the van. We have a 7 kilowatt hot water system, so we that every now and then. But yeah, 4 kilowatt hours is about as much as we use. And then like to drive, if you want to drive 200 miles, you use the full 120 kilowatt hours of energy. So 4 versus 120 is minuscule. So a very small amount goes towards domestic use. Most of it does go to driving. And actually that's part of like one of the key understandings that I want people to understand about this journey is the amount of energy we use to drive, to locomote around the planet is phenomenal. And the reason we need to sort of tackle this electric vehicle / renewable grid situation is because of that, because we don't really have that connection. We get into our vehicles, we plant our foot on the gas pedal, and we kind of just assume that we have access to all of this with this energy. So yeah, hopefully I'm going to keep moving on because there's a lot of questions to answer, and I can see people asking questions on here live right now, and I'm going to get into that in a second. So hold your questions. I'm going to go to the live questions in a minute. I'm just going to answer a few more of these questions that came in earlier on Instagram, and then we'll start getting into your questions. I'm hoping that we can keep this under 45 minutes. We'll see though. That's why I wanted to get all the frequently asked questions out of the way at the start of the video. So anybody who had those questions could just jump on the video and quickly get those answers, and then we'll move into more of the deeper sort of stuff. So I apologize, but yeah, I can see some questions coming through. If you have questions, just hold them for a minute and then throw them at me in a second when I open the floodgates. How long does it take to charge when you plug the van in? It takes 8 hours to charge when you plug the van in. Could you add range? Could you add range if your vehicle could handle the extra weight and space? Yes, you could. If you upgraded the suspension system of the van, which is an idea that I have, you could definitely put more kilowatt hours in the van, and then yeah, you could get more range. So the answer is yes, the vehicle could handle it. It's a very strong vehicle. Currently, the power to weight ratio of the batteries is old technology. The batteries that are in the van are super heavy for the power that they have. If, for example, I was to replace all of those cells with Tesla cells, the power to weight ratio would be phenomenally greater, and we'd probably have a lighter van and get more range because of the lightness, but also because we have more kilowatt hours in the van too. Battery technology is phenomenal. It's going crazy. If anybody watched Battery Day this year, Elon Musk announcing what technology they're advancing with their battery cells, it's pretty cool. The price is going down, and the efficiency and the power to weight ratio is going up. So that's exactly what we want to see for the future of this industry, or the combination of energy production and storage. All right, moving on. Are there formulas that can accurately describe the relationship of weight, speed, range, and amount and type of battery? There are. That's not a question for me. I'm not an engineer. There are definitely. There are formulas for everything. Just like the formula for drag coefficient, there'd be a formula that you could work with all of the parameters that you know in your vehicle, and you could understand the relationship between, you could understand your tipping points for adding too many batteries, which means you're adding too much weight, which would decrease your range. You can figure those points out. I don't know them. My van is proprietary. It was built the way it was, and I only added some stuff to it. And the stuff that I've added to it hasn't decreased the range. So I know that, but that was not because I did I didn't follow the formulas. I didn't calculate it. I didn't calculate those thresholds. I just did it and then hoped for the best, and it worked out for me. It wasn't very scientific of me, but it worked, which is awesome. Moving on. What kind of electric motor do I have? I have a Z-Tech 70 kilowatt hour drivetrain. It is a DC brushless motor with I've been doing a lot of research on this lately. It's a DC brushless motor with an inverter, an AC inverter. I'm not sure how exactly it works, but basically, if you want to get regenerative braking, you need to use an AC system so that you can, when your motor spins backwards, when your motor spins under the kinetic energy of the vehicle moving forward, it kind of creates compression in the motor, and then it can send energy back in through the system. But it can only work if you have an AC system. So the way that the Azure, it's a very old motor and it's not super efficient, but it's a 70 kilowatt hour motor. It's not very strong either. I think actually the horsepower of a Nissan Leaf motor is greater than the motor that I have in the van currently. And Azure Dynamics, I believe, Zytec motors, I believe, don't create these motors anymore, so they're obsolete as well. But basically, the reason they used this AC/DC coupling system is so that we could get regenerative braking in the van. So hopefully that answers that question. Could Could I upgrade the motor if I wanted to? Yes, I could, and I've been thinking about that. What kind of electric motor do you? Oh, no, that's already that question. If I could start from scratch, what would I change about the overall setup? If I could start from scratch, I would, I think, build something from the ground up and forget all of these proprietaries. I think that would cost a lot more money. But in saying that, I'm glad that I didn't, because I'm out on the road now and I'm currently working these things out as I go. And that's been a cool and fun adventure. So if I could start from scratch with the knowledge that I have now, I would literally start from scratch and I would build a vehicle from the ground up and I would make it perfect to my needs and all of that. And yeah, but other than that, it's hindsight. You can't really do anything about it. And I'm really happy that I did things the way that I did them. I think there's one more question. Cost. I broke down the cost last week in the video. I'm not going to go over it now. Basically, the vehicle costs the project cost about $50,000 US, not including some things. It's not the total figure, but $50,000 for all the parts and some of the labor, because it's based on a DIY project. Obviously, most of the labor was free or donated by Brett and Kira Beelan and our friends at Solar Roller. Sorry. So the total project cost, if based off of a DIY project, was about $50,000 US. And we saved a ton of money by buying a proprietary van as it was. So yeah, basically that's the way that works. That's a very specific answer. All right, let's move on because we've got only, well, I guess we can go over the time, but whatever. I'm going to start opening up the floor to questions. So if you have questions, send them through, and I'm just going to look at the first one that's there. With a van that heavy, from Will Mikrinchi, I think that's how I say it. Hopefully that's right. With a van that heavy, do you have to be mindful of bridge weight limits? Such a cool concept, been following since Alaska, though fallen off a bit lately. Glad to see you're still at it. Well, it's good to have you back, Will, first of all. I hope you're catching up and binge watching all of that great content that we have up there on the internet. But with a van that heavy, do you have to be mindful of bridge weight limits? I mean, like 6 tons is heavy, but maybe in some of those country roads with the wooden bridges and stuff like that, it might be a good idea to think about it. So yeah, I guess if I saw a sign that said bridge weight limit 6 tons, I'd be starting to worry. But most of the roads I drive on, the bridges are built to handle semi-trailers and big lorries and things like that too. So they weigh much more than 6 tons, I'm assuming. Actually, I actually don't know the answer, but I'm assuming they weigh much more than 6 tons. So the answer is yes and no. hopefully the answer. It's a very heavy vehicle, it is, so it should be mindful of a lot of things. I definitely am mindful of what, what grades I can drive up, but that's mostly to do with the power drivetrain of the vehicle. So yeah. Moving on, Stefan, you got 6 ton. On what kind of license do you drive? So what license do I have? Where's my wallet? I can show you my license. I have an Australian license and it's just a normal license, and basically I'm allowed to drive it. It's just I have a normal car driver's license and a motorcycle license. And I think on the back it says I can drive up to 4.5 tons GVM. So maybe I should be getting a new license. Shouldn't be saying this too loudly on YouTube. Actually, I do have a Canadian license too. I wonder what the specifications on that. Yeah, 4.5 tons. I guess I'm driving illegally down the road. I never even thought about that. I just put myself out there. But yeah, I have a ton of friends in the United States who drive these vehicles on normal licenses. They don't have truck licenses or anything like that. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the answer. Why can't we super chat? I don't know. What's super chat? How do I do that? Jeff asked me, why can't we super chat? I should be able to. Oh, super chat's where you can donate on the thing. Yeah. Well, my bad. I didn't do that. If we can't if you can't get your questions through, I guess that's the reason why we super chat, so that your questions get answered first. I do apologize. Next live stream, I'll make sure that I put super chat on live. So I do apologize, Jeff. I appreciate you wanting to support and getting your question through. Take my money. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. If you do want to donate, we have a donations page on our website. It's donation through PayPal, www.rootdelsol.com/donate, I think it is. But yeah, other than that, I have a Patreon account too, where a lot of cool people jump on there, and basically I tend to give everybody on Patreon my most attention. If they have questions or whatnot, I answer all of those guys first, so all those guys and girls first. So yeah, basically, if you want to support that way, I do understand. If you want to wait for super chat, wait for super chat. But did you have a question, Jeff? I'll answer yours right now if you send it through. Stefan says, here it's normal to get up to 3.5 tons for a normal license. So even worse in Europe, I guess, for one of these vehicles. Finn Wren, I think you said Scotland, from Scotland. When saying you think the trip will be 2.5 years, is there any reason you wouldn't travel for longer if enjoying it, or do you have any further plans? I have no plans, man. I think you hit the nail on the head. And basically that's how the trip has been going so far. 2.5 years more, I guess, is what I'm saying. So far it's taken 2 years. Obviously with this coronavirus situation and the panels getting ripped off the roof, I guess with that situation occurring, it's set me back a bunch. I would much rather be sort of traveling around Baja or Mexico in general at the moment, because obviously I'm stuck in this country. All the borders are closed surrounding. I would much prefer to just be traveling around and doing things. So I would just still be enjoying myself at the same time. But I'm also enjoying myself here and stopping. It's been a long time since I've spent this long in any one place in the most recent years of my life. Actually, it's the longest, I think. No, I mean, I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia for about 1.5 years, but it's coming up to about that time. I've been in Ensenada for nearly a year now, or maybe a little bit over a year now. So, yeah, that's a huge step back. But if I'm enjoying myself, there's no reason for me to rush. And I think that's a really good message about this trip, is that, you know, with these kinds of technologies, we can really start to take a look at what's important in life. And if we can manage to bring our work with us on our road and be sort of fluid and malleable, there's no reason why we can't live our lives as free and sustainable and open as what we currently are doing with this Root del Sol project. So if it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years, and that will be fun because I'll just get to know you all, and I'll probably make a bunch more friends on YouTube. All of you guys are great. It's been really fun sharing this journey with all of you. So if I can keep doing that for another 5 years, I'll be stoked. Good question. Thanks, Finren. Jeff, here's the question. All right. He couldn't super chat, but I apologize for that. We're going to answer your question right now. I'm moving into a Tesla Model Y on January 15th. I want to get a 600 amp hour battery with a 2000 watt inverter to charge and live off of it. Could you ever live in a small SUV? I had a Nissan X-Finder, something like that. It was like a small, wasn't, I mean, that's a model, is a Model Y an SUV? I thought the Model X was the SUV, but Model Y is kind of like it's a sedan, right? But anyway, I didn't live in an SUV, but I definitely did a bunch of camping. Like I would go, a Nissan Pathfinder, thanks Andy, telling me what my old vehicle was. No, it was an X-Trail. It was an X-Trail. Sorry, it was a Nissan X-Trail. Xterra X-Trail. I think it was an X-Trail. But anyway, I didn't live in that, but I used to do camping trips in it all the time. Just slap a mattress in the back. Because I lived in Canada at the time, I put my snowboard in and I would just drive to a ski hill, and I didn't really like paying for hotels. I would snowboard, and then I'd sleep in my van, and then I would go home, to try and get it all done. So that was sort of uncomfortable, obviously, and obviously with the cold, there was no heating or anything like that. So I'd have to stay rugged up. It was kind of like camping, but in a car. That wasn't for a long period of time though. When you look at my van, it's super, super Oh, there we go. The Y is the new SUV. The X is the older and a bit bigger. Okay, cool. Well, there we go. It would be fun to see if I could live in a Tesla, or see what I could do with the space inside of a Tesla. When you look at my van, it's huge. It's got everything you need. I'm 6 foot tall. I can stand up, and there's still, a couple of inches of, or 10 to 20 centimeters of headspace above me. Maybe not, maybe 10 centimeters, 5 to 10 centimeters of headspace above me. It has a kitchen. It has a huge bed. I can fold the tables up. I'm doing some custom work to the interior at the moment to try and get it to be a little bit more livable. But after having that luxury in my life, I did own a camper van before that too. So I already had a little touch of that. I lived in that for about 6 months when I lived in Canada. But yeah, living in a Model Y, I mean, there's probably people who are doing, I know there's people who live in even Model S's and stuff like that. And you're saying you're planning on getting a 600 amp hour battery with a 200 watt inverter to charge and live off of. So basically you want to charge the Model Y with your 2000 watt inverter. That'd be a super slow charge, but more thinking you probably want to use that so that you can have all of your like appliances and stuff operating. So like you can boil water and all of that sort of stuff. I assume that you would want to get a solar panel on the roof as well, so that you could complete that solar array system. But it sounds like a cool idea, Jeff. Do you have a YouTube channel? If you have a YouTube channel, definitely link us through to it right now, and we can all go and check out your journey of moving into a Model Y. That could be super fun. Super fun. Stefan, as an Australian, why the Americas and not Australia? Good question, Stefan. I think about that all the time. Sometimes I'm like having a bad day here in Mexico because I just don't flow or get the culture, and I'm trying to speak Spanish and understand. I love it. It's a beautiful country and full of beautiful people here. But sometimes I have bad days and I miss home, and I'm like, why didn't I drive around Australia instead of, because a lot of people in Australia, I'm not sure if that's why you asked the question, but a lot of people in Australia drive the circumference of Australia. And I'm trying to get that. I should have done it in reverse. I'm trying to get the outside of Australia. Well, see how good of an Australian I am. So that's a really popular trip that people take, and they sort of go around the outside of Australia and see all the beaches and live the lifestyle. Sometimes I wonder why I didn't do that. But ultimately, the reason why I chose the Americas is because it has the longest navigable road in the world, being the Pan America Highway from Alaska down to Argentina. And I really wanted to make a statement with electrification and renewable energies. And I wanted to show the world that there's no reason why we can't transition to renewable energies right now, other than socio-political reasons. The technology exists, and what better way to show that that technology works other than by driving a vehicle like this and charging it off of renewable energy the whole way down. I mean, there have been instances where I have had to use fossil fuels to get out of trouble. For example, when the panel situation happened in Cartagena, I had to plug into the grid, and the grid here is coal. But I went back north. I didn't go south. So I've tried to sort of maintain that complete renewable energy aspect throughout the trip so far. But yeah, that's basically just a statement. Look, we can drive these things all the way down to the tip of South America, which is very close to the Antarctic, in all sorts of climates, all sorts of weather regions, mountains, beaches, sun, tropics, deserts, and all the whole way, renewable energy is available to every single person in those places. It's just a matter of taking that next step, over the edge and providing. In Australia, I guess we have that diversity too, but it's just not as great. Maybe that can be like season 20. I'll go to Australia and I'll take everyone to my home country and show you all the beautiful places there. It is a very beautiful country, full of a lot of beautiful people too, and I miss them very much dearly, especially at a time like this. There's a lot that you give up by living on the road. My sister's had a baby since I've been gone. Another sister got married, and now that first sister who had a baby is pregnant again and about to have another baby. yeah, I've missed birthdays, friends getting married. I've missed all sorts of things by not being home. So yeah, it was kind of like it's been difficult, but also I'm living a very wondrous and happy life. And at the end of the day, all my loved ones and all of the people who are missing me from back home are stoked that I'm doing this journey. So hopefully that answers your question there. I kind of went off on a tangent. Andy's just telling us about his trip that he took. Jeff's telling us about the Cybertruck order in 2023. Yeah, those Cybertrucks are going to be cool. I think we could do a really cool job of a camper in those Cybertrucks. Edu says, could you make water with a dehumidifier? Yes, we could. That's actually an idea that I've had about these vehicles, is there's just enough energy to sort of do anything you want. And with a dehumidifier, you could definitely pull water from the air and use it to drink, especially if it's purified, if you run it through a purification process as well. So yeah, it would be really cool to add something like that to the van. I'll have a think about it, but yes, you could. If the energy needs of the dehumidifier, which I'm assuming, I don't know how much energy dehumidifiers use. We used to use them in Canada all the time. And I never really looked at the spec sheet because I wasn't interested enough back then. But yeah, I mean, we have 8 kilowatts of solar on the roof, and the new array is going to be around the same size. So anything sort of that falls within that range, my inverter is 8 kilowatts as well. So anything that falls underneath the 8 kilowatt AC or 8 kilowatt DC range, I can power off of my van. But then you sort of start thinking about how much you're taking away from driving, and maybe something like an air conditioning system or a dehumidifier is going to start eating into that driving mileage. So it has to be a trade-off. Depends how important the dehumidifier is. I could imagine that being very valuable to someone who doesn't travel long distances, but uses the vehicle basically to live off of, and maybe they go to a grocery store once a week, or they live in a desert or something like that, where water's scarce. I mean, the dehumidifier would probably have to work super hard in a desert to get water out of the air, but could be totally possible at the same time. Jeff says, so solar panels get cancer easier in Australia. I don't know what solar panel cancer is, but I guess they could because of the ozone layer depletion down there. In the southern hemisphere, we have a thinner ozone layer. So when the sun comes down, we get a lot more energy from the sun down there. So yeah, we tend to have a little bit more browner skin for our European complexion. So that was a funny question. Thanks for that one, Jeff. I like to laugh. All right, Kevin says, my dehumidifier is sitting right next to me. It's 720 watts. So yeah, if you run a dehumidifier 720 watts, you're sort of sacrificing a good portion of your solar array. What is it, 1/8 of the solar array, about, especially if you're running it all day. But I don't know what the need would be if you would need to run it all day, if you would just run it at nighttime or anything, something like that. So there was a good question there. Any advice for living in a vehicle in super wet British Columbia, Canada? I lived in a vehicle in super wet British Columbia. I lived in Vancouver for nearly 2 years all up. And I understand you completely, Jeff. It is very wet and it is very miserable. But then when the summer comes around, it's all worth it, right? At the end of the day. I don't know, man. Just use your Canadianness. If you're Canadian, I'm assuming you're Canadian. Use your Canadianness, man. You guys have got tough skin up there. You can really handle the weather. I did it for 5 years up in Canada, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But I can tell you that I did miss the tropics where I'm from. What's my favorite snowboard hill other than Whistler in Canada? I lived in a place called Sun Peaks. I really enjoyed that. Super large. Would I say it's my favorite? I think so. It's very not super crowded. I didn't really explore too many of them. I went to all the ones in Vernon and what are they called? The ones around the Okanagan area, including Sun Peaks, and then Whistler obviously is a banger of a mountain, but obviously super popular. But yeah, I really enjoyed Sun Peaks. It's a really cool mountain. Big White was pretty cool too. But yeah, I'd say some peaks. I think some of the northern mountains, like Kicking Horse is it, or Golden, have some really cool mountains up there that I never really got to, and I would have really enjoyed skiing up there. All right. There was a question. I remember seeing a question that I really wanted to answer. It was after the skin cancer. Oh, why did you get your first tattoo? My first tattoo was this mustache on my finger. And that was Jeff asking that question again. I got that because I was young and stupid, and my friend bought a tattoo gun, and we're at a party, and he asked me if I wanted to get a tattoo, and I said yes. So we drew it on with a Sharpie, and then I got this ridiculous mustache tattoo on my finger. All right. What is the power loss when moving power from one pack to the other? That's super significant, Stefan. That's a really good question, actually. Let's get back to some more serious stuff. I'm trying to bypass that. The reason that we do that, we transfer power. Basically, if you understand energy, we come from DC in the panels down through the charge controllers to the batteries, to the 40 kilowatt hour auxiliary battery. From the 40 kilowatt hour auxiliary battery, we go to our inverter, the 8 kilowatt Outback Radiant inverter. Then from the Radiant inverter, we go to our EVSC, our Juicebox NLX charge controller. And then from the NLX Juicebox charger controller, we go to the onboard vehicle charger. And then from the onboard vehicle charger, we go to our main drivetrain battery pack. And I don't know about you, but I think I counted like 5 steps in there. And if anybody knows anything about engineering, we know that that every single step, no matter how efficient, can never be 100% efficient. Even like a wire butt joined together can cause some level of inefficiency. The wire itself is an inefficiency. You know, everything joined together by wire. That's why you have to directly size your wires correctly, because obviously energy escapes from everywhere, and particularly when you're using electrical components. What are the energy losses? I've never calculated completely, but I like roughly it would be up to 40% at times, depending on how hard the equipment is being used, how hard we're pushing the equipment, how fast we're charging, all of that sort of stuff. So it can go up to 40%. I mean, it can go down to 20%. But that's a lot. It's a lot of energy. You may as well that's like losing 20% of your solar panels all of a sudden. So it's quite significant. And actually, what we're trying to do, is rebuild the array. And if we have enough time, we're going to start hacking into all of these things and see if we can start bypassing some of these inefficiencies so that we get more range for the same amount of energy. We're getting really close to an hour long, and I only wanted this to be 45 minutes. So I'm going to take one more question, and I'm going to look for the best one that I can see, and I'm going to answer that, and then we're going to end for the day. And maybe next time we can get back into it all. So let's go down. What is dating like? Oh, that's a good juicy question. What's dating like? Do you think electric vans are available now enough for solar fuel project like yours? Thoughts on an electric incinerator Toyota? All right, let's choose from. Let's vote. Well, I guess everybody watching is the old array. Have you been able to use the top panels when driving? That's an easy one to answer. Yes, we can use the top panels while we're driving. I said I was only going to do one. All right, who wants to know about dating? Who wants to know about, is there not a DC-DC charger available? There are DC-DC chargers available. I just have not really put time into working that out. Do I think they're any good? Does anyone know about electric vans that are available at the moment? Who wants to know about dating? And who wants to know about the set voltage of the pack? Dating. Pedro says dating. Who votes on dating? Oh, hour just went. I should hang up right now so that I don't have to talk about dating. Okay. What advice would you give to someone who is trying to live a meaningful life and live simply as minimalist for this type of lifestyle being a digital nomad? I really like that question. So I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to answer the dating question. Everybody wants to know about dating. Well, there's 3 datings versus 1 electric van. Maybe we'll have to take some other questions at some other time. So what advice would I give to someone who is trying to live from Ulrich Ekio? I hope I said that right. Live a meaningful life, live as minimalistic, and for this type of lifestyle being a digital nomad. My greatest piece of advice is to jump over that edge. To just start cutting things away from your life that you know are unsustainable, and just keep foraging, pushing down that pathway of trying to be a more sustainable and more meaningful human. One thing that I like to speak about to people who ask me for that kind of advice is the most important thing is doing, you know, and we all intrinsically as humans have a gift to give to this world. And I believe every single one of you here listening and watching right now has a gift. We all, maybe it's similar to other people's, but we all have that like individual gift, and you've always got to be giving that gift regardless of what it is. And if you want to live a more meaningful life, and that includes sustainability, I think defining your mission is really important, your personal mission. My current personal mission is to drive from Alaska to Argentina. So it's very worked out. It's very clear to me. It's not easy, but it's clear to me, which helps me to align every single part of my life accordingly based off of that. But yeah, that's the gift I'm currently giving to the world at the moment. And what I've found is that by jumping into that with all of my energy and all of my heart, a lot of doors have opened up to me. The universe has answered all of those calls and all of those questions. And yeah, I've been largely happy with the results of jumping over the edge. So yeah, that's sort of like the best piece of advice, I'd say, Ulrich, is to jump over that edge, to literally just get into it and start knuckling down things and keep defining more sharply your mission, your current personal mission. And if your current personal mission is to be a digital nomad, then literally start working your way into it and use any means you have available to you within the confines of sustainability to get it done. All right, and then now Jeff asked the dating question. What's dating like in BC versus the rest of the world? Everyone tells me that the women are so much prettier. Did you notice anything? Well, I'm glad everybody liked that answer. We're going to end on a less serious note because Jeff, was it Jeff who asked that question? I'm pretty sure it was Jeff. Yes, dating in British Columbia, the women are very beautiful. You know what? People are beautiful all over the planet. And for many reasons, I think people can be physically beautiful to someone, but not someone else. Particularly coming into Latin America, it's been a really funny sort of way to explore or understand, you know, the differences of dating culturally. Obviously, in British Columbia, Canada, the culture is somewhat very similar to Australia. You know, there are differences, but ultimately the culture is very similar. So we kind of look the same. We kind of look, you know, Canadians and Australians don't generally look that different. But yeah, I think the women in Vancouver, shout out to you girls, are very beautiful for a number of reasons. They're also quite liberal and open and generally sort of try to work on spirituality and all of that sort of stuff too, which is a super attractive quality to me when I'm looking for someone to date. And yeah, that's sort of like, I think that, how do they compare? Well, I think there's beautiful people and women, because that's my sexual orientation. There's beautiful women all over the planet. And yeah, I really have enjoyed experiencing and getting to know people, especially people from the opposite sex from all over the planet. Look at me, I'm getting nervous. I'm stuttering. What a question. Yeah, and then obviously like bring that back into van life dating in general, because Will just sort of wanted to add to that. And I think that's kind of like maybe what you were trying to get at there, Jeff. Yeah, in general, van life dating is complicated. Obviously, you're always on the move, and it's really hard to give your time and energy away to people. Yeah, like my mission is to drive from Alaska to Argentina, and unfortunately, I don't really have too much available space to be giving myself away. So unless I find someone who's very closely aligned to me in those parameters, in that mission, and they sort of have a similar mission, it's always going to be complicated to date in van life. In general, as in a traveler, it's very hard and complicated to do. So just had a really good conversation with a friend about this the other day. My friend Benji, he's in one of our vlogs. He was riding from Alaska to Argentina, and we were talking about all of this and how complicated it is. And yeah, it's a huge part of life, finding someone to share your life with. So yeah, it's always complicated. Anyway, I think that's all we have time for. It's been an hour and a good hour and 6 minutes. I was rushing to get here, and I'm really glad that this all happened. So I am definitely going to do one of these again. So let's stay tuned, and let's keep those questions rolling in through the comments of the videos. Let's keep engaged, and also through Instagram. I do look out for all of your questions, and I try to answer them as quickly and efficiently as I possibly can. But obviously, every now and then we need to have this community catch up. The Route del Sol community needs to combine in one place, and we need to answer all the questions. Yeah, Andy, I hear you, man. There were a lot of really good questions that I saw there. It's really hard to answer them all, but that's why I think we should do one of these again, so that we can definitely get through more questions. Maybe we'll do more of a spontaneous one where I just answer the live questions rather than answering all of the ones that have been backed up for a long time. So anyway, let's leave it there. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate everyone's support, and yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. Even in a year like 2020, it's been really good because I have a bunch of you guys here to help me through it all and help us keep moving. So yeah, hope everybody's taking steps to making their dreams a reality, and I'll see you all next time in my videos or wherever it is that I'll see you all. But yeah, thanks a bunch. Love you all, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.